Bros and heroes. Gonna tell you about bros and heroes. Gonna tell you about comic books,
Costumes,
facts, boots,
and other stuff.
in this week's issue.
Ooh, I never get to do these. Saga of the Swamp Thing. Welcome in.
I love that. I love that. That was great. I love the fact that you said it. It's awesome. Yeah.
Welcome into Bros, Foes, and Heroes. I'm Zach, joined as always by the non-malicious one, but ever marvelous, Mr.
Non-masked. Yeah.
Unmasked,
Non-masked also. Yeah. It's so I figure, it's a spooky time of the year, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what's spookier than no mask?
Ooh, that's very true. You're just going as like humanity as it's
Really? Yeah. Let's go with that. It's really this. I forgot to get a mask, so that's all it is. Yeah.
Well, you can rectify it next time we're on.
Yeah, we're fine. Oh shit, Zach, I'm an idiot. Look right over my head here.
Oh, you have that lamb mask over there.
There's a fucking mask on the wall.
You could have just gone and grabbed it. But
yeah, that's all right. It's probably full of spiders, so we're
I
fine.
didn't notice we have all that Spurs stuff in the background. Anyway, today's issue or episode is something that we have promised and talked about for a long time, and I finally read it a couple weeks ago, and then I ended up having to have surgery. And
let's talk about why we've been off for a little bit.
Yeah, so
it's all your fault.
It is all my fault. I've had some just problems in general, and I ended up having to have part of me just cut out because it was bad. They found the bad part. They're like, that's the problem, and they went in and they cut it out. Yeah, I have I counted the other day, because they had to remove or.
Did you count in feet or what? Did you?
No, the incisions.
You're like
the little tinies.
Yeah.
It reminds me of the King of the Hill bit when he gets the colonoscopy and it just keeps going and going and going.
Or like prayer beads,
That's true. But sometimes they look like something else. Anyway, I have 7 different total incisions on me that are going to turn into some really nice scars, I think.
So was it all what do you call it? Endoscopy, whatever you call it?
It was a robot.
Did they actually open you, or did they just stick in you and figure it out?
So there's little slits that I think they just kind of stuck in parts.
How dare
there's
you?
one bigger. There's one bigger cut. It's probably about I love how you can't see my
Yeah.
That's great for the people listening.
He held his fingers up.
2-3 inches that they might have But yeah. So I am recovering from that.
Yeah.
And also tomorrow, which will be Halloween, or if you're listening to this on Halloween today, I am becoming a dad for the first time.
Congrats. You've been looking forward to this for, it seems like, almost 9 months or so.
Yeah, close to it. Yeah. That's a long time to wait. I don't know if that's the same for most babies, but
I hope it's done.
It's not like something you can put back in the oven.
That's true.
No,
you can try, but
yeah, it's just not going to work. So I have a lot going on, but we're still going to try to, at least for a little bit, periodically get these out, and then when everything's better and more calmed down, then we'll be back on a regular schedule.
I want to say how much I am proud of you, though. I mean, you got to be there at 5:30 in the morning.
Yeah,
to have a bambino.
I don't know if I'm going to sleep tonight, to be honest.
Well, you shouldn't. That's what I'm saying. Don't, and then you two can sleep together tomorrow when they're cleaning off the baby, because they come out real dirty.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if they. Yeah, no, they do. They do. I was trying to come with a joke, and I was like,
I get it. Sure.
Yeah.
It's all right. I'm excited for you, man. It's going to be a big day. Big day.
I really
change your whole friggin' life, which is crazy.
I know. I am being kind of themed, as you can see. I'm actually comic book ready. What's so funny?
Wait a minute. Hang on. Remember, this may be an audio cast. He just panned down and showed his Superman logo. Yeah.
I always forget, now that we do video, I hate to take away from our audio listeners.
Sure.
I'm wearing just a blue shirt with the Superman logo on it.
I just have a Rancid t-shirt on, and not that it stinks. It's the band Rancid, and it's probably God, this has got to be a 15-year-old shirt. Oh shit! Look, my camera's starting to move. Look at that.
Oh,
it just like woke up and decided to start moving around.
Mike's camera is like following him as he moves.
Yeah.
If I fall back down,
audio
you're
people,
gonna pick me back up again. If I fall back down, you're going to be my friend. Oh, that's a lovely pick.
It's like a Matrix thing.
Mike is not body surfing. Anyway, let's get stuff where we don't just
exclude
the audio audience. We are finally getting into Swamp Thing, specifically Saga of the Swamp Thing, which is when Alan Moore took over. We're going to cover the first little story arc there, which is technically he did issue 20, but his, I think, full run, everybody kind of agrees, starts with issue 21. And we're going to cover issue 21 through 24, which is the first kind of story, and it is so good. I know I kept putting it off because I know that Alan Moore likes to he likes a lot of words. Like, he's wordy at times. Like,
well, he's very he likes the exposition, all the extra stuff. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Real quick before I get into, I want to make a side note. I think it's funny because I go back and I make shorts for our YouTube channel.
Right.
And this week I've made 2 for. Do you remember when we did Superman at Earth's End? Old Man Superman, giant gun, those little kids. And I ended up making 2 shorts of it. And I talk so much crap about Superman then. I was like, oh, let's take a story of where, he finally looks bad. And I've realized in the span of us doing this podcast in the 3, years we've been doing it.
Yeah.
So I've done a complete 180 on him as a character with the stories we've done. And now he's one of my favorites. So I have no clue what happened, except I guess I read good Superman stories and was like, oh, I think I understand Superman now. And I appreciate us having, like, with all the evil, like, Homelanders and evil Superman clones we have, it's nice to have a guy that is, does good just to, like, do good and help other people out. Like, it's nice to have, like, a opposite to the all just like, oh, he's off the tracks, you got to watch out, he's unstable, to having a guy that decided he's an alien that's stronger than all of us, and for some reason decided to help us and protect us, even though we don't deserve it. Like, it's a, there's a lot there, but I didn't mean to divulge from that. I was just thinking of wearing my shirt.
I do kind of like the evil good guy though. That's kind of a cool jam.
I get that. But all right, so back to Swamp Thing. What we're going to do first is I'm going to kind of give you a little bit of a background before we get into the character, because I know when we've talked before, of Swamp Thing, but not too much about Swamp Thing.
Never met him in person.
So he actually debuted in Marvel's House of Secrets back in 1971. And what House of Secrets was like a anthology horrors book where there would be like 2 or 3 different stories in it per issue. And it was just an 8-page story in there by Len Wein, who was the writer, and Bernie Wrightson, who did the art. But
by the way, if the people that can't see this, that art on the cover is like quintessential, like, think of Tales from the Crypt. Yeah. It's that same art. It's beautiful, hard lighting, very vivid kind of colors, but vivid colors with a lot of darkness, that kind of thing. It's very cool.
That is one thing I'll say. And even also, like, when we get into the my camera's not moving, I'm moving myself to get me in frame. But when we get to the Alan Moore run stuff, there's going to be so much great art. Like, what I have slides, I don't have every page from the issue. I just kind of pick slides with some fantastic art for when we talk over, and I kind of tell you the story when we get there. But that's the thing about Swamp Thing that I really love too, is like, it was a mix in those 4 issues, a mix of great art and great writing. And so, like, when we get to the Alan Moore stuff, like, you can kind of tell, but just to give more background here. So he was in the House of Secrets number 92, Len Wein, Bernie Wrightson did it. And essentially in that story, it was just something that they asked, like, hey, can you write a story for this? And the 2 came up with this. It follows a guy named Alex Olson. And as you can see, it's kind of set in like the late 1800s in a way, presumably in Louisiana. And essentially the story is one of Alex is there with his wife, Linda, and he's a chemist, I believe. But Damien is their friend who's there with them. And Damien,
gotta watch out for Damien.
You should kind of has a thing for Linda, who's Alex's fiance. So
by the way, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but make sure tomorrow check the back of the kid's head. Just double check. Make sure there's no 666 back there. You just got to double check.
Is that an Omen reference?
If you don't check now, you won't know.
Gotcha.
So, yeah.
Okay.
That's just a dad-to-dad little tip for you.
Did you check all your kids?
Oh, hell yeah. And they all had it. Yeah.
Oh, man. Okay.
Sorry, go ahead. Yeah. Chemist.
So Alex Olson is a chemist, and Damien, his friend, has a thing for his fiance. Okay. So he decides to rig up an accident in his lab. Rig up an accident in his lab and an explosion, but it doesn't kill Alex. So he kind of throws him in the swamp back behind the area to like finish him off in a way. So after Alex's funeral, Damien decides to make the move on Linda because that's a great time to, hit on a being almost widow.
Sure.
But when she rebuffs him, he decides, all right, then I'm going to kill her too before she can find out that I'm the one who killed Alex. Well, this swamp monster kind of busts in and kills Damien and stops him from killing Linda. And it looks like when Damien threw Alex in the swamp, whatever the chemicals are mixed with stuff in the swamp, and he turned into this giant swamp creature. And so he then goes and kills Damien to protect her from Linda. And when Linda sees this swamp creature, it frightens her. So he realizes that he's lost his humanity in a way. The woman he loves doesn't recognize him anymore. Yeah. And he's forever kind of just cursed to live as this swamp creature. So it was a one-off in that issue, and that was it. Mm-hmm. So it ended up being that Marvel House of Secrets was the highest selling book for Marvel that month. And they thought, hey, maybe it has to do something with, the Swamp Thing story. So they asked Len Wein and Bernie Wrightson, hey, why don't you turn this into a series? And they were kind of at first like, I don't know what we're going to do with it. Like, we kind of told the story we wanted to tell. And then eventually, I think Len Wein came around and was like, okay, we'll go ahead and do it. And the first issues of Swamp Thing, the full series, follow a lot of horror tropes. Right. Like there's a bunch of different monsters he encounters, vampires, things like that. It's a little bit of an updated origin story. We get a different name. He's no longer. When is
this from? This is 72?
This is from, I got to remember.
Because the only reason I say that is down at the bottom, it says Wrightson, and I think that's a 72 right after it. You see the signature down there?
I think you're right. I think it's a year later.
Okay. I had no idea that Swamp Thing was a regular person at one point. I did not know that. Yeah, that's good to know.
Yeah, so we'll get ready because we're going through a lot with this.
Okay.
So in this origin, Alex Holland, no longer, Alec Holland with a C, no longer Alex Olson, and his wife Linda are working on some kind of formula. I might get it confused with the first part of Saga of the Swamp Thing when we do two, but that's fine. Essentially, they're working on this formula to help plant life be able to grow in places where it can. Okay. I think I might be confusing that with the Saga, the Swamp Thing. Either way, it doesn't matter. There's it's a group that's after what he's doing. And there's an FBI agent who's named Matt Cable that's there to kind of watch over them to make sure nobody messes with them and what they're working on.
Yeah, sure.
A giant group called the Conclave comes to them and is like, hey, we want your research for X, Y, and Z. And the Hollands are like, no, we don't want you to help with that. So the Conclave ends up setting an explosion in Alex's lab, like dynamite or a bomb or whatever, and it goes off. And while he's burning and caught on fire, he dives into the swamp to put it out. And eventually he's dead that way. Okay. Linda doesn't die. A couple weeks later, the Conclave ends up getting rid of her, but that causes Swamp Thing to come back and battle, try to, I guess, battle the Conclave because they killed his wife.
I wonder why they changed it.
Well, because they were doing it, he wanted to flesh it out a bit more.
I see.
So it's a whole 24-page story now to do the origin, and it's not just the little one-off that they did before.
Right.
So,
okay.
In 72, it runs for a bit, and then eventually it's kind of canceled without any word abruptly. They had the next issue ready, and it's end up canceling. But they spend the whole time going through a lot of it's good. Like the first series is good. It's not like what I read. I enjoyed it, and that origin will kind of go over into Saga of the Swamp Thing. That Matt Cable guy, at least in Swamp Thing, thinks that the Swamp Thing actually killed Linda, and so he, kind of chases after him because of that. Some other characters just to bring up, just for the heck of it, because I might mention some when we get into the actual meat and potatoes of this. Yeah. There's a guy by the name of Anton Arcane, who's a big villain for Swamp Thing.
Love that name.
And Anton wants to, he's an older man, and he is using the science technology he can to find a new body and to be able to live longer. He's doing experiments to kind of find ways to keep himself, make himself immortal in a way.
You just got to get one of those paintings. You get one of those paintings.
Oh, is that Dorian Gray?
Well, yeah, they get old. You stay young.
Yeah. Hey, and then you just hide it and hope you don't look at it.
That's the same. That's the same thing that CoverGirl was trying to do, I believe, with their makeup. Yeah.
He has a niece named Abby who is around, who follows and helps Swamp Thing later on through stuff.
Okay.
In this first run, before it was canceled, they even had a point where they reverted him back, he turned back into Alec from Swamp Thing, but they've quickly kind of do away with that, and it's not mentioned again. He never turned back; he was always Swamp Thing.
Yeah, because that's kind of a werewolf thing. You don't want that. Just seems kind of weird. Yeah.
In a bit. So then eventually, like I said, they cancel the book, and he makes some appearances in the new Challengers of the Unknown, but they're sparse here and there. And then eventually he just kind of goes into obscurity. People just kind of forget about him. Okay. So until he comes back, and I'll save that cover for a bit, but what happens, a couple fun facts also, a couple fun facts about that is one thing. The reason he's called Swamp Thing is the whole time they were working on it, Len Wein just kept referring to it as that Swamp Thing. Hey, are you working? Yeah, no, I'm working on that Swamp Thing. And then eventually he was like, you know what? That kind of works. And so they started using it as the name of the character. Also in issue 7, Batman shows up in the original run, and it's because Bernie Wrightson wanted to draw Batman. So I kind of like that they're like, hey, he's part of the main DC universe, and I really wanted to draw Batman, so now I get to.
So let me ask you this: when did Man Thing come around?
70. They came.
So it was right after it.
72. Well, no, there's a lot of debate between which one came first, because
it's Namor and
the same year.
What's his name?
Aquaman. No, Namor's I think earlier than Aquaman.
Yeah, but you know what I mean. Like they follow each other all the time. It's like if one of them does something, the other one has to do it.
Man Thing first appeared in Savage Tales for Marvel in May of 1971.
Okay.
So let me look this up. I know this is riveting to everybody, but I want to get it right. Who was
No,
first?
It's good. I asked.
Yeah, you did. I think that if I could spell, this is great. There we go. So it says Man Thing was introduced in May of 1971. Swamp Thing had his introduction a month after. Well, 2 months after, I guess, in July of 71. What made more of an interesting discovery was how both monsters share the exact same origin. So
just friggin' thieves, man. They just steal from each other.
Yeah, it says some have concluded that Marvel copied DC's Swamp Thing, while others were positive DC copied Marvel's Man Thing. Neither is true. Marvel and DC actually drew inspiration from the Heap, in the same way George of the Jungle and Khazar both copied Tarzan. And I knew that because the Heap came out in 1942. Okay. So you have a monster that's like a swamp monster like that called the Heap that I guess they both kind of pulled from. So it really doesn't matter who came first, Man Thing or Swamp Thing.
Yeah. Well, thanks for denigrating my question like that.
Oh, my bad. So
doesn't matter.
So after those first issues, he's gone. He's in obscurity. And while they're sitting there waiting around, a movie comes out for DC that everybody really loves, called Superman with Christopher Reeves. And it does gangbusters for DC.
Robert Zemeckis.
So, yes.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah. So
no, wait. No, that's not right.
No, I'm sorry. No. It's sorry, dang it. Because Jeff Johns, I'm looking it up because Jeff Johns, Richard Donner.
Richard Donner, that's what I meant. Same thing.
I knew it would come to me. Yeah.
Strike that. It's what I said.
Richard Donner. So there's the thought they go ahead and they make the I guess that's just really nerdy, but I'll add the fact he was in the Challengers of the Unknown, and then that book got canceled with the DC implosion, which happened there in kind of the late 70s and 80s. They had a thing where they were putting out so much new content to try to bring people in, and it just didn't work, that a lot of titles got the axe after a while because they were fledgling. And so that's why Swamp Thing and Challengers of the Unknown went away. Then this movie thing happens. So
did you know, can I say something real quick? Did you know that Mario Puzo, the same guy who
wrote The Godfather,
did the script for Superman? I had no idea about that. That's crazy.
Here's what's funny. I'll tell you about Mario.
Damn.
Mario worked in the same offices that Marvel and Timely Comics were in back in the 60s. He worked for the magazines because Martin Goodman owned it all, and he worked in the magazine department, and they looked down on the people writing comics because it's like that kid stuff. Sure. So it was Stan Lee and Jack Kirby. Now, this is before Fantastic Four just blows up, right? Mm-hmm. So it's like late 50s or 60s. And he would walk by the room and he would lean in and goes, "Work, my little elves, work." And he would just like kind of degrade them. Like, it's in the history book that I work. Like, eventually he kind of came back around. I was like, okay, I was wrong. But yeah, he worked for Martin Goodman there under Marvel for like the magazine department. Wow. And they would constantly like make fun of the comic book department. It was in the, it's mentioned in Sean Howe's book, The Secret History of Marvel, or I'm just awful today on remembering names.
You're fine.
Of books. Marvel Comics, The Untold Story is the book. Yeah. Great read. It's an audio book that I've listened to multiple times. And the audio reader is not bad if you ever do that. So we've gotten off track. So they come back and they decide to make this movie.
Imagine.
Us. And the Superman movie is very popular, and they're approached then about, we want to make a Swamp Thing movie. Wes Craven makes that Swamp Thing movie. Have you seen the movie?
It's the one with Adrian Barbeau.
I'm pretty sure.
Isn't that right? Yeah, I'm pretty sure. And it's a terrible movie.
Yeah, that seems to be the Wes Craven's. Yeah, it is with Adrian Barbeau, and Ray Wise plays Alec Collin, at least the
1982
part of him. Yep. So they are trying, DC and their infinite wisdom was like, hey, since the Superman movie did so well, let's go ahead and take advantage of the movie with Swamp Thing. And so they re-released the Saga of the Swamp Thing then to coincide with the movie.
I've already learned so much because Mario Puzo and Wes Craven. I mean, I had no idea Wes Craven made Swamp Thing. That's crazy.
Yep. So
he has no right to ever call a movie bad because he made Swamp Thing.
I don't remember. I don't think he kind of does call things bad. But anyway, so that's where we get the Saga of the Swamp Thing.
Yeah.
So now we're on the run of where, it's a lovely one. I took that there was something there. That we're getting into with Alan Moore. So they do in this one, it's kind of a similar story, except the group is not called the Conclave. It's like Sunderland Industries or the Sunderland Group. And what they are, it's the same thing. They're working on this formula that kind of would help vegetation grow in places where it couldn't.
And this is what year?
This is now 82 that they've restarted Swamp Thing.
Yeah, because we're coming upon a time when corporations become like the evil thing.
And that's exactly what this is.
So I can see that, yeah.
So Alec Collin and his wife are working on this. Oh, I have that same cup. Are working on, because all the to-go cups are plastic.
Yep, I keep them all. My wife hates it.
Alec and his wife are working on that formula, and the Sunderland Group wants to use it, obviously, for profit, or I don't know, some more profit of just like selling it off things.
Right.
And so they try to get the information from Alec. He doesn't want to give it. There's another accident, lab explosion, jumps into the lake. He becomes Swamp Thing again. And we have this tale then of him as Swamp Thing, and he battles multiple times against Anton Arcane. But for our part, it gets to the end where they switch. I think there's like 16 issues with one set of like writer and art team, and then there's 3 after that with a different writer and art team. And finally, Alan Moore comes in issue 20 to take over the story. And what he does with Swamp Thing in issue 20, as it is so rightfully called, Loose Ends is the name of issue 20, because what he's doing here is he's wrapping up all the loose ends from the story before him. It's Alan Moore as the writer. Eventually, I'm trying to make sure if it's the same on all of these coming up, because the art, I'm telling you, Mike, I know you're absolutely going to love it.
Well, I like this. This is cool. This looks like a 1973 vinyl album cover or something, you know?
Yes. And once we get to the issues after this with Alan Moore, it's Steve Bissette doing the pencils and John Totleben doing the inker and the inks, and it is absolutely fantastic. Tatjana Wood, I could be wrong. Tatjana Wood, I apologize if I butcher that.
Tatjana
ends up doing color. I'm trying to give credit. They didn't do this one. This is just the cover for 20 for Loose Ends. But so what happens in this issue is essentially it's following a big battle between Swamp Thing and Anton Arcane. He's in the ship. The ship crashes, and he doesn't believe that he could survive that wreck, but he wants to see for himself that Anton Arcane is finally dead. Like Alec as this monster and everything he's gone through has been like, this is my big foe. He shouldn't have survived, but I want to make sure he's dead. So he's going through the swamp hunting down to find it. All the other characters, Matt, Abby, their storylines are going on. I'm going to focus just on Swamp Thing's story here because I think it's the best. But there is other,
from what you told me. Yeah.
And there are good secondary storylines going on. I recommend this to anybody to read it because I enjoyed it. Like I read those 5-6 issues for this very quick because I was just so into it, especially when we get to issue 21, it's probably my favorite horror comic I've ever read.
Really?
Like, it was
wow.
Good. Just the way he sets it all up. So he's going through looking for everything. Eventually the Sunderland Corporation, they set the swamp on fire as they're hunting for him, and they find him and they riddle him with bullets. And then they're going to take him in. They tell General Sunderland that, hey, we got Swamp Thing, and they bring him in. In the next issue, the anatomy lesson is there. And that is the cover. This is when Alan Moore fully takes over with the story that he has in mind. And it's fantastic. We've talked about it before when we covered his Superman. He did so damn good of a job of pulling from the history of the characters. Because what he does with this is just like everything he's given. He's like, yep, that's fine. That's the story it is. And I'm going to make it work. And he also brings in somebody that at the time, I think had only had 2 appearances in all of DC. At once, he was a bad guy for the Atom to defeat, like in the 50s, and then he appeared again in the 70s as a Green Lantern villain. But what it is in the anatomy lesson, look at the art.
Yeah,
again, the art and the story is so great.
Well, that anatomy lesson, it looks like I believe there's a Alfred Hitchcock movie that has that same sort of body that's been dismembered like that,
I think you're right. I just don't know.
It's cool looking. Yeah.
Also
very
love
cool.
how on each limb it gives the credits, like you see Alan script, and I love that too.
Well, this was you said this is 82.
This might be 82 into 83 right now. Let me make sure.
It looks.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. It came out in this issue is February of 84.
Okay. It looks like the 60s is what it looks like. It looks like 60s, early 70s.
Yeah.
It's very cool.
I love the art, this whole thing.
Yeah,
and so we open the issue, and our narrator is a man by the name of Dr. Jason Woodrue. Okay. He has been released from prison and brought into the Sunderland group because General Sunderland wants him to kind of dissect Swamp Thing and figure out what was the formula that made the two like one thing. Like that's all he cares about is a way to find profit out of this.
Sure.
But I love the narration. Like, see, as you see that, like, I have to give just a lot of people want to be like, oh, comic books, the writing is so, but just listen to this. Like, I love the way he sets it up. It's plump, warm summer rain that covers the sidewalks with leopard spots. Downtown elderly ladies carried their houseplants out to set them on the fire escapes as if they were, sorry, I have to pull it closer because as if they were infirm relatives of boy kings. I like that. Like, it's just great writing, even though I butchered it.
Well, it's word art is what it is. You know, it's flowering up your sentences just so that it feels grander and it feels old timey, and it's setting a scene.
It is, but it's like such a good intro to this.
Really well done.
And you know, my name is Jason Woodrew, Dr. Jason Woodrew. I'm here in my apartment. I'm and he talks, you know, he's watching the rain. I'm watching the rain, and I'm thinking about the old man being General Sunderland. And you get over here to the side, like, he'll be pounding on the glass right about now, or maybe not now, maybe in a while, but he'll be pounding, and there will be blood. I like to imagine. So yes, I rather think there will be blood, lots of blood in extraordinary quantities. Like, it's a very just like, okay, something sinister is going on. And I just like the tone it sets. That's just the first page of it. So what we find out is Jason Woodrew, if you don't know, is the Floronic man.
God bless you. What?
The Floronic man?
Floronic man. Okay.
I'm pretty sure.
No, I've never heard that.
I think it's Floronic. It is.
What is it?
I might be butchering it.
What does that mean?
Floronic. I don't know what Floronic means in general.
All right, then I'm going to find out while you're talking. Go for it.
Okay. So, essentially, what he did when he battled the Green Lantern back in the 70s is he took a formula that turned him into a plant man.
It's a flower-shaped ornament, especially when it ends an object or forms part of a series of floral motif, such as a decorative series or terminal point on an object.
There you go.
So flowery stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. But he like turns himself into this plant man against the Green Lantern. Well, come to find out in this. Like,
so this is his history of turning into plants.
Yes.
Gotcha.
So and he's been in prison. So that's why he would be taken out of prison. And Sunderland's like, what better way for somebody to dissect Swamp Thing than a doctor who is also a plant man? So he kind of like holds it over him, like, I got you released from prison. I can back in any time. Like, I just do what I do here, because there's a point where he like holds that over him. But just to know, he also has like these spray cans almost of like this flexi flesh, like he sprays on his body and it makes him look human. Because his true form is that of the Floronic man, and so he uses the spray to kind of cover his body and flesh and look human. So that's why when we see
kind of like you see on the side of the road when the county comes through and sprays all green.
Yes, except it's just flesh to make him look human instead of his plant.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, all right.
So that's why you see him up there so the old man is General Sunderland to the right, and then up top he looks like a human, but that's Dr. Jason Woodrew, the Floronic man. He just has that flesh spray on him to look human. So now that we have who he is, we kind of...
They're both creepy as shit, but okay, yeah.
And so Swamp Thing is there frozen, waiting to be like autopsied. And what Woodrew runs into, and he's kind of perplexed by, is as he's opening and dissecting Swamp Thing, he realizes that there's plant organs inside of him. Like, there's a plant heart, there's our plant lungs, but there's no way for them to move and operate. There's like a plant brain, but there's no like stem of it sending synapses. It's just like it knows it should have it, so it has it. And he brings up there you go. That's the Floronic man when he doesn't have his flesh spray painted on. I told you the panels I picked are just great art for this.
Well, he looks like he's just constantly melting almost, right? but he's all made of, as you can tell, like organic material, you know, and then his hair is all plants, and
it's the
his
flesh
pubes are all
washes.
plants too, by the way. Just letting you know.
It is. No, it is. I didn't pick that up, but you're right.
Yeah, there it is, right there.
But hey, that's how you get around not having to draw anatomy.
But that's literally a bush.
Accurate.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'll be here all week.
You see, like, he just washes the flesh off of himself into his true form there.
Yeah.
But so he goes and he tells Sunderland this, and he's like, I don't think you understand what this means. And Sunderland's like, well, enlighten me in a sense. And he tells him about, oh, sorry, I got ahead of myself.
Yeah, no, that was nice.
These planetarian worms. I think, and he goes, they taught one of them to run a maze. And then what they did is they chopped up that planetarian worm and fed it to the other ones who couldn't figure out the maze. And after they digested their fellow worm that knew how to, they could actually run the maze and figure it out. He tells him essentially, like, imagine like Alec Collin there in his lab when he finds that bomb, he's on fire and he goes out into the swamp, like he's burning. He's already dead, is what he says. Before the swamp kind of takes a hold of him. And
I've heard this theory before that, like, you teach something to do a thing and then you cut it in half and you feed it or whatever, you know, and then that half can do that thing, or you feed it to that thing and it can do something else or whatever, just by almost like osmosis, you know?
Yes, in a way. And so he tells him, like, that's the thing here. He's like, that thing's not human. That's not Alec Collin.
Well, no,
that's
shit,
the swamp. Okay. Well, no, he's like, he was never human. Like, this whole quest, because one of the biggest things for Swamp Thing was to be able to find a cure to be able to turn back into the human form. Okay. But he tells him Alec was dead. Yeah. This is the swamp thinking that it's Alec Collin.
Okay. That makes sense.
He's like, it's not a human. Essentially, it just absorbed all of his thoughts, all of his, you know, like, memories, but it's never been a human at all. It was always just the swamp. I love how I hit that in to make a point, not to shake. And so, like, he tells him, like, you know, that's it. He's you don't know what this means. Like, there's not a person in there. It's swamp has taken over. Nature has just assumed that it's a human, and it made those, you know, it made those plant lungs because, oh, Alec Collin had lungs. Alec Collin had a heart. Like, it thought it was Alec Collin, even though it wasn't. So Swamp Thing is its own entity now. And he turns that into, like, with
it's kind of like that life finds a way, you know, kind of thing where, the swamp, it's going to retake. Like, I'm always fascinated by, Walking Dead did a good job of this at the beginning. You could see how nature just started to retake all of society and stuff, you know, and so that sets up in your mind that nature's got a plan, you know, and it's gonna take over. And so it's kind of cool that he gets dumped in there. The guy's gone, but the essence remains and the plants take over.
Yeah, the plants take over, and the plants feel like, hey, we're supposed to, you know, we want to become human because we're Alec Collin, but you're not. You're just plants who think that.
Yeah.
So that's got to be, and like, he gives his files to Sunderland, and Sunderland's like, whatever, I don't need you anymore. Like, he essentially tells him, I'm going to send you back to jail. Yeah. Like, because all I needed to know is, like, what made this, like, he, you know, made this creature.
He got the use out of him and let him go. Yeah,
exactly. So what Jason does, or the Pharaonic Man, is he leaves the file on Sunderland's desk, and he hacks his computer to open up the chest or the lower, like, freezer area, the doors where Swamp Thing was, allowing him to thaw out. Because here's the thing: if it was a plant, he's not going to die like a regular person. Yeah. Like, just because you thought he's dead, he's not.
Right.
And so he lets them unthaw and leaves the doors, like, open and unlocked. And so, like, when the general goes down to check on him and, like, gloat over, like, like, I figured this all out and I still have you dead, he's met with the Swamp Thing. And I love that art, man.
Well, it's the eyes. The eyes are what get me. I mean, the teeth are cool too, but the eyes, like, they're partially red and then they just get bigger and bigger. And now, you know, it's on, you know?
Yeah, and so Swamp Thing makes his way back to Sunderland's office because he's looking for him, and he finds the files that or the report that Woodrue did, telling him that he is just a plant, like he's not a man. And so Swamp Thing reads it and realizes that, like, shattering his world in a way of everything he knew being gone. But he also knows that Sunderland's to blame for a lot of it. And so he ends up attacking Sunderland and just killing him there. And I just love the art as, like, he just sits there and almost, like, suffocates him inside the plant. Like, you just see him, like, in his head, you know, his legs dangling, the water, you know, from the rain on the window as he ends up killing Sunderland. And he just leaves him dead there as Swamp Thing leaves to go back to the swamp. And Jason Woodrue just enjoys knowing that, hey, you know, he got one over on Sunderland. And he's like, for the moment, I am content. Supply to think and to plan and to listen. It's raining in Washington tonight, which is where it starts. The same line that it started with, it bookends with. So our next issue, 21 Swamp Thing, after leaving, goes back
much
to
detail.
I'm telling you, the art was fantastic. Goes back to the Louisiana swamps and just kind of roots down because he's like, I'm a plant. I'm just going to root down. There's nothing else. Like, this is what I'm supposed to be.
I'm a plant.
Yeah. Abby and Matt find him and they're like, no, you got to wake up, Alec. Like, come on. And Woodrue is kind of watching from a distance and he tells him, like, Alec was never there. Like, he tells him the same thing. Like, hey, your friend that you thought was there, he's not there. Like, that's just a plant. He's rooted. And I mean, it's, you know, weird. Like, look, he's even creating tubers. Like, he's, you know, and like he's rooted down and he's creating plants. Like the guy you thought's not there. And they leave. And Jason's kind of like still doing studies, trying to find out more, trying to get in touch as a plant man with what they call the green, which is like nature in general. Like, he wants to be able to connect to nature the same way Swamp Thing does.
Right.
So he decides to, like, eat one of the tubers, and it ends up, like, helping him, like, get in touch with the green and all of nature. He can now, like, link in and connect to plants and stuff like Swamp Thing can.
So the dude...
you have a question?
Yeah, the dude ate part of Swamp Thing, basically, or he ate a Swamp Thing egg?
Yeah, in a way. Through his research, he's like, I wonder what's going to happen. But it kind of helps him along with his research. He finds a way to tap into what they call the green, which is, again, nature. So he's able to use nature now to his advantage.
When was the last time you ate something and you just said, let me just eat this and see what happens?
Maybe I was a kid.
That's what I'm saying. I mean, you just like
berries on a tree or something. Yeah.
Well, I'm just saying, you're like, oh, here's a thing that dropped out of Swamp Thing. Let me eat that.
You know, it could have been. You don't know what it is. Like, it just looks like that could be. It'd be like, you know, his discharge of something. It's just sitting there growing out of him. But
yeah, poor little swamp balls.
But Swamp Thing the whole time is like going through this, like realizing that he's not actually Alec. And there's all of this thing where they like dress him up in the Swamp Thing suit, like dress Alec up. It's like these like he's trying to process. And the whole go of finding his humanity.
Got it.
And there's not anything there.
Oh, look at this fucker. Yuck.
Yeah, so that's him there sitting there eating it back at his little lab that he set up. And he opens, he's like, nobody's there. Like, he's so, like, the Swamp Thing is so rooted that he's not even like conscious. He's going through this, trying to figure out and like come to grips with everything he's learned.
Yeah.
While the Pharaonic man cooks and eats part of them. And he's like, just as I thought, perfectly edible. It's like, there's a great scene while he's thinking of where like Swamp Thing's holding the skeleton of Alec Holland.
God, that is so cool.
All of these monsters are fighting him for it. And he's like, no, this is my humanity. This is mine. Like, get away. Like, you know, and it's just so great the way they drew it. I'm telling you, the art for all this was fantastic.
See, I don't think I ever read Swamp Thing because I thought it was probably too deep for me. Like, it is a very deep story. It is deep. Honestly. When for a comic book, it's a big deal, like searching for humanity kind of thing within yourself.
Within yourself, yeah.
No, fighting against nature and that whole thing. I mean, just it's a lot.
it's really deep, but it's really good.
Yeah.
Like I'm thankful I took the time out to go ahead and read it. And at the end, this is where I tell you, like he goes out into the swamp as the Floronic man, and he is able to finally connect with the green. And he goes, and somewhere in the writhing jungle of the mind, the small and scared mammal that was Jason Woodrue twitches once and then lies still. It begins to rain, blossom. He is the Floronic man, and all that was once human in him is consumed, engulfed, swamped. So he is now in touch with the green as well. And so he can control things, the swamp and plants, just like Swamp Man can. So what is he going to do? Well, there's a kind of like ebb and flow where Swamp Thing is trying to deal with, he wanted to find his humanity and keep it. Jason Woodrue, now as the Floronic man, has lost all of it.
Yeah. And
so what we get with issue 23 here is he goes on kind of this killing spree.
Different artist, right?
No, for the from 20 to 21. But I gave the art team from 21 on through this. It's the same. It's Steve Bissette.
Okay.
It's,
okay. So they found a team and they stuck with it.
At least for this. And it's perfect. It's so good.
Yeah.
Like he murders some teens that are out looking for the Swamp Thing. And then he decides to head to some of the parishes and just destroy them. Like once he gets there, he takes out the police house first.
So is he just trying to destroy all humanity? Is that what it is? Because he's the green now?
He is. It's like all you guys do. It's like there's an environmental message in there, and he's like, all you guys do is harm the environment. We would be better off without you.
Yeah.
But the way he does this is so super villainish and just so evil. So he takes out the church or the police station. He takes out the school and then the church. And he gets all the people to like kind of come outside. And like the sheriff tries to shoot his gun on him and he like throws vines up.
Is that what it is? All the people in the steeple thing?
Yeah, it's the hand thing. Yeah.
Sure.
Like a lot of them go back into
damn, he's looking rough now, man.
Well, he's no longer human. He's just a Floronic man.
Well, but what I'm saying is he's getting even more diabolical looking. Like he looks like he's part werewolf, part demon, part all kinds of things now. He's not just a dude with a big bush. I mean, he looks evil in that top right-hand panel. And
I would argue he is fully evil. It says, I love this writing here. It says at 1:45, he made a number of requests. The first was that a video camera and a tape recorder be produced from somewhere. The second was that a number of the people return to their homes, close their doors and windows. Many were glad to comply with that. They didn't know. And so it shows the requested equipment was produced by a boy who owned both a cassette recorder and a video like cassette step. Like he stepped forward. His name, it gives his name, and
this is an old school big ass VHS recorder that you put on your shoulder.
And it says he was asked to film the following. And essentially what Jason Woodrue does is he puts plants up all around the houses and he increases the oxygen level they produce to such a high amount that all it takes is for somebody from all the house plants, the plant outside, somebody lights a cigarette and the whole town almost engulfs in flames. And he makes the little boy film all of it while everything's burning down. Like this is sinister shit.
Yeah, that's mean.
And he's just making like the boy's crying as he's having to do it. And then he tells him like, go ahead and get those tapes to whoever needs to see like the news and tell them like I have of what I'm going to do.
Oh shit. Look at that.
Abby eventually comes across like some of the bodies and finally calls out for Swamp Thing to help. And her calling out eventually kind of awakens him from his rest.
Yeah.
And he comes to not necessarily save her, but he realizes there's a problem and like people are being hurt. So like he comes to their rescue.
You know what he doesn't do?
What?
He doesn't call on the fucking fish to come help him.
Another Aquaman dig.
Sorry.
So there's like, just to show how evil that Woodrue is right now, There's a woman who's like pleading for no more, please. And he's like, no more? No more? Like, what about everything you've done? Like stripping the land bare, like everything you've done to us. No more? Like he's just offended by her saying that with everything that, you know, we as humans have done to the environment. Like he makes a point at one time, as he's going off, and he's like, you know, no more, where he goes, where there was no noise, where there's no screaming meat. Like that's a land that I want. He wants to essentially get rid of all humanity because they've done such bad stuff to you know, the lands. And
this is where M. Night Shyamalan got that idea, right?
I have no clue.
The Happening?
No, I wouldn't. That Marky Mark in there.
Yeah, it's awful.
It's
awful.
It's the worst one of his movies, I think.
It's a terrible movie.
But about that time, as he's going off on this chaotic, he has that woman wrapped up in vines just above him. Yeah. We see a panel that says Woodrow off the corner, and Swamp Thing's there, and Swamp Thing tells him no more. And that's where we end that issue, as it takes us to our final issue here for the story arc in the Saga of the Swamp Thing number 24. The Justice League actually appears. What's
the deal with the flame on his head?
That's Firestarter. Firestar? Not Firestarter. Firestar.
Hothead is what his name ought to be.
No, it's
he's got flames on his head. It's Hothead.
It's the professor who fought the Weasel that we covered when we covered Weasel in his debut origin. He can turn into that. I think it's
Professor Hothead. I'm telling you.
No.
All right, you're good. Go.
I'm blanking, and it's going to bother me that I don't know the name.
Green Lantern, Green Arrow, Hawkman. This is the most ineffective Justice League ever.
Well, there's a great quote in it, though, to show like how much I loved Alan Moore's writing. So what happens at the beginning is essentially, I don't know if I have the slide there. Yeah. So the report is given to like all the news channels to run as he's making his demands, and he tells them like, this is the revenge of the grass. Like what I'm going to do is I'm going to up the oxygen everywhere to where it's flammable, to where you can't breathe it, to where it just eventually I'm going to kill all of you off, and there's nothing you can do. Like you will regress and become nothing. You know, when within a year you'll all be dead. There's nothing that you can do about it. It is the day. Like today's the day.
So for you guys that are listening, the panels are. It's almost like an old CRT TV where it's got kind of the lines in it and stuff. And you can only assume that someone's watching this on a screen somewhere. We don't really know yet, but we see some buttons around it and things like that. And so it looks like somebody is like, it's almost like it's a CCTV kind of thing or something.
Exactly. And we find out that it's the Justice League watching it. And that was like the city that he had destroyed was LaCroix, Louisiana. And there's a quote from Green Arrow in there, and I really liked it. And it was, man, I don't believe this. We were watching out for New York, for Metropolis, for Atlantis, but who was watching out for LaCroix, Louisiana?
There you go. That's a good quote.
Oh, it's a great point.
Mm-hmm.
So the Justice League gets the demands.
And then he turns around and realizes he's Green Arrow.
And they realize there's nothing really they can do to stop this. Like, they feel like they're trying to come up with ideas. I think I might have had the quote in there. Yeah, I do. You can see it there from, man, I don't believe this down in the bottom right. So they're trying to figure out, they're like, the Pharaonic man has never given us trouble like this. Like, what is, you know, what's up with this? No. And they're trying to figure out a way to handle it, and they can't. While we flash back to the standoff between the Pharaonic man and Swamp Thing.
Right.
Now,
because that's where we left the last one, right? The last panel was just boom, no more.
He's there, no more. Yeah. So now it's there.
Gotcha.
And so the Pharaonic man believes now that he's tapped into the green that, hey, Swamp Thing's here to help me out with this. He knows what's up to. He feels the same things I do. Like he knows how much they've hurt us. So he's like, like you've come to help me. And he's like, no, I don't want to. And the two of them kind of battle it out a bit. And one of the guys in town who refused to leave earlier, because he said that Evangeline could help him. This is a small kind of off story. Evangeline had to be a chainsaw that he tries to use on the Pharaonic man, but the Pharaonic man kills him when he tries to use it. And instead, the Pharaonic man decides, hey, you want to use this? And he decides he's going to try to kill Abby, Arcane, with that chainsaw. And about the time, like, Swamp Thing stops him. And he's like, oh, my arm. Like, he kind of, causes him to drop it. And he's like, it hurts. And he's like, why do you keep coming back? Would you ask him? Like, why? Why do you keep coming back and hurting me? And Swamp Thing tells him, because you were hurting the green. And Woodrew's like, me? Like, I don't understand. He's like, that can't be. Like, I'm doing everything that I should want to. And then Swamp Thing tells him, I'm helping out the green. Like, I am the green servant. I will, I work through, it works through me, and I am doing its will. And Swamp Thing tells him, look at all this. Like, this is not, the way of the wilderness. This is the way of man. Like, you coming through and slaughtering everything. He's like, that's your way, Jason Woodrow. The
two
green,
wrongs making a right, all that stuff. Yeah.
He's like, the green did not do this. You did.
Yeah.
And the Pharaonic man's like, no, that's a lie. He's like, I spoke to the green. They told me what to do. This is what they wanted. And he's like, this is what you wanted. You were ill, Woodrew, and you poisoned the green with your presence, like with your desires. And he's like, you're lying. Like, he's starting to kind of lose it. He's like, you're lying. Why are you lying? And then he tells him, he's like, our Swamp Thing tells him, like, you know that I'm not living. You know the green. Do not conceive the madness. And he's like, this isn't madness. Swamp Thing basically tells him, though, but like, and what will change the oxygen back into the gases that we need to survive? When there's no man, there's no animal. He's like,
that's a very good point.
And he's like,
it's a delicate balance, it's both sides.
Exactly. We need them to create the carbon dioxide to create, so we can create the oxygen and grow. And he's like, no, like, it's getting quiet. Like, I'm losing, like, he's starting to lose. Like, I don't feel it. Feel it. He's like, what's wrong with me? And he starts to lose all the connections that he felt. Cause he felt like when he like touches in, there's a point he's like, I can feel this and like, oversee, like he just feels nature all over the globe. Like, sure. I can feel it in Japan. I can feel it in New Zealand. And he's starting to lose it as he realizes that Swamp Thing is right. Like,
haven't we had something like this where like mushrooms or something make like this network where they can all kind of talk to each other? Haven't we covered something like that? I feel like we've had, where we've had something, some comic book or whatever that it was like the stuff on the ground could all talk to each other or whatever, and if you upset that balance, then they all know to come get you or whatever. I don't know. Maybe I'm pushing things together, but I thought we had covered something like that.
I don't remember. We might have. We've covered a lot of stuff. Right. And so Woodrew is kind of like losing that feeling of being in the green. So he realizes Swamp Thing's right. And he kind of runs off to be like, no. And he's starting to realize, oh no, what have I done? Yeah. I can't feel anything. I've lost my touch to the green. Yeah. Swamp Thing's right. I need my humanity back. And so he retreats into the swamp. And there's a moment between a Swamp Thing and Abby where that he admits I'm not Alec Holland, I am Swamp Thing, there is none of him in there, your friend's not here. Yeah, it was just I'm sorry to tell you that. And she asked him though, are you happy now knowing all that? And he tells her yes, because I feel I know who I am. Yeah. Well, at least he got an answer, Exactly. And she's like, where will you go? And he goes, where I always go, back home to the swamp. And it's kind of one of those things when he feels things in people or things in threat, he communicates, like you said, kind of through the green and through nature. And so that's why we had him show up in Batman Damned. Do you remember that? I do remember that. Yeah. Yeah. So it was him sensing, something wrong there with everything. That's why he showed up. Yeah. So Jason Woodrew then Batman Damned. Sorry. Oh, it's because it showed his package. Sure. So he ran back to his lab, and he's frantically like trying to find his flexi flesh to spray on.
Yeah.
And he doesn't have any of it really left.
Here they come.
He'd accepted his fate as being like he was the Pharaonic man.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't need his humanity. Humanity was wrong. So he like tries to hurry to spray it on, and you can tell it's a guy losing his mind. He's like, he's talking about how far his bark has grown. Like he let it grow down. He's like, oh, there's no time. I just have to spray it. Like they're going to be here soon. And he's like, I got to let them know, like, I'm not the Pharaonic man. I'm human like I was. Like it's him losing his mind because he knows that the Justice League is going to be there, and Green Lantern and Superman show up to bring him in. And they're like, would you? And he's like, would you? Well, yes, but call me Jason. I'm one of you. I am human. Oh. And it just shows as if just melting. Like he's not. And he's like, human like you. And they're like, would you? And they're like, what? Oh my goodness. Like they realize. And he's like, oh, you mean my arm? Well, because, earlier Swamp Thing attacked his arm and he like kind of broke it or whatever he did. He's like, well, my arm, like I broke it on accident. I was just, something mortal or something normal, like driving a car, fishing, one of those things. And I broke it. And he's like, it hurts actually. It hurts quite a lot. I need a doctor. What I'm saying is I am a doctor. And they're like, Woodrow.
Yeah,
like,
he's nuts.
Well, he's like, we'll find you one. And like Superman wraps his cape around him.
Yeah.
They're carrying him off.
Well, you fucking know you're in trouble when Superman wraps his cape around you.
Well, but he's doing it in a way of like they feel bad for him.
Well, that's what I'm saying. You're like it's like a child being taken away from a house that's burning down or something. It's like you got problems when Superman wraps his cape around you.
Yeah, and Superman says to Green Lantern, Arkham, like let's take him to Arkham Asylum then. Mm-hmm. And Green Lantern says, I guess so. And then he goes, Cal, what happened out here? As he looks like all the mess in Woodrew's lab and everything else with the green. And then Swamp Thing goes back and reconnects with the swamp. And that's where we end that run or that story arc, which is what I wanted to focus on tonight, then, which I thought was an absolutely fantastic story.
Was that all of Superman and Green Lantern and the Justice League showing up?
Yeah, just at the beginning, just at the end.
What a job they did on us, because that whole cover is like, oh, everybody's here. It's a whole Justice League party.
They were all there at the beginning watching it, but they went to they sent.
But did we even see them watching it?
Yeah. Oh, I didn't have it in the panels.
Oh, okay. Okay.
They watch it and they kind of talk and they talk about like, hey, how can we deal with this? Like,
because I'm thinking this is a real switch job they did on us here.
No, I didn't. I got you.
Sure.
But that was the first story arc of Swamp Thing, and my goodness, I just absolutely
it's very good. Very good.
So there we go. We finally did it.
That is probably honestly, with the exception of like all of the Batman storylines that we've done, that is probably the most detailed humanistic type storyline we've ever had.
It's so good.
Like it's that's what you take the green stuff out of it, you take the plants out of it, and you've got like a whodunit and almost a horror movie.
Yes. Oh, the horror is great through it. The art is so good. Like that's what made it so easy to read too. Is like I've read a lot of comics, and there's somewhere either the art's good and the story, the art's good and the story's not, or the story's great and the art's not. Yeah. But this is one of them where they both work so well together.
That art in those books just like it's perfect for that subject matter. I always go back to like the way I draw and stuff, which is a lot of like lines for shading and stuff like that. I like a lot of darkness and a lot of light on things. It's real dramatic looking. It almost takes me out of it when there's more color in the pages. Like when Superman showed up, I'm like, oh shit, where'd all that red come from? Or whatever. Yeah.
No, for sure. But so there you go. Alan Moore's Saga of the Swamp Thing, not great the full thing, because he ended up doing a lot of issues on that. And this is actually, like, I think his first DC job. Like, I think before this, he was just working for 82,000 and because he's a UK writer. And so he was doing stuff on Captain Britain and Marvel Man. And this was the first thing that he kind of did for DC. And it ran for a while. Like, he has a good long run on it. But I thought we'd cover the first story arc, because if we talked about his whole run, my goodness, we'd be here for hours.
We're getting to Captain Britain, aren't we?
I have no clue.
I think we're getting a Captain Britain, and I thought it was Henry Cavill. I'm almost positive that they've cast him as Captain Britain.
Okay, I'll take your word on that. I haven't.
And then last night we started watching Agatha All Along, and they showed a preview for the Wonder Man series.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
How does that look?
It looks good. I mean, it's a failed actor kind of thing, just like Wonder Man is. And I don't know much about Wonder Man, but just what you've told me. And I'm sitting there thinking, oh, I think I remember that. I think I remember that thing, that kind of stuff. But it looks great. I think it's 25 is when it's coming out.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Sometime this next year. Yeah.
We get Superman next year, which I read while we're just going over stuff about this. I'm so stoked for it because the rumor that I read was that all of the promotion for it is going to focus on the fact of like hope and like doing good deeds, and that it's not bad to kind of be like, the Boy Scout in this world, which I love that. Like after Snyder's dark, edgy Superman.
Yes.
I like something
God, get us away from that, please.
That's going to be more in tone of what I think Superman should be. Also, Supergirl is going to start shooting in January, I believe. And I got to tell you, Mike, being in the hospital, because I was in the hospital for a while with this surgery recovering and stuff, I got a lot of reading in on things that I haven't been able to get to.
Oh, that's cool.
I read all of Tom King's Vision series, which was really good. And then I read the Supergirl one that he's also writing the script for. Like he's helping to write the script, and it's based on the 8 issues. So good. Oh, it's so good. If it's anything like the comic, it is going to be a great movie for Supergirl.
And then we're getting second season of Peacemaker.
Yes.
I mean, there's just so much coming up, honestly, that and I love this time frame because we've moved past like the origin of Spider-Man and the origin of Superman and stuff like that, and now we can have some actual like little weird adventures, with characters we maybe don't know so much, and that kind of thing. So I'm looking forward to it. I never thought I would be excited about a dog, about Superdog.
See, I love that too. Here's what I loved about James Gunn
can do anything. I don't care.
Well, surprise, surprise. For some reason, people in this comic book community love to be very like, well, in comics, he was this, or they're just like kind of
what the hell ever, guys.
When people have new ideas or new takes on the character, instead of waiting to see or seeing how it turns out and just being like, okay, that's that take on it, they just want to be like, oh, Crypto's always been a lab. And so what, they were attacking him like, Crypto's always been a white lab. I don't know. This looks like a mutt, yada, yada, yada. And so James Gunn found like art from one of like the comics where Crypto is this muddy looking dog and just posted it to be like, hey,
screw
y'all
you.
Are wrong too. Well, I mean, he didn't necessarily, but he's like,
well, and that is the one thing about him that I'll say that I really love is that he doesn't get into the trenches with these guys, and battle it out as far as comments and stuff goes. He just proves it. Yeah, he just proves it. And dude made a talking raccoon cool. So I mean, he can do anything he wants to, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see this James Gunn DCU. Something that I read this week that I knew you would be excited about, and we will cover it when it comes out. There's going to be a comic book coming out before Peacemaker Season 2 that's supposed to tie Season 1 and Season 2 together that James Gunn is helping to write, and it's going to be a vigilante comic book, I'm pretty sure.
Oh, very nice.
So we will cover that at some point in time. We will also cover the original vigilante, who is very different from the Peacemaker.
Very cool. Yeah, I love that.
Yeah. So I think that's everything I had. Appreciate, you guys taking the time out to watch and listen as always. This one put together a little bit different as we're doing it remote. We're going to have to do remote for a while, but that's fine.
It's all right.
But Saga the Swamp Thing.
How much did you guys pay for this episode? I'm just saying. Yeah. I'm not trying to be an ass or anything, but shit, I mean, at least we're putting out an episode. So.
I mean, how many of you actually made it to this far in the episode though, too? So if you did, thank you. But
hi, our wives.
and one person who might feel bad for us.
That's right. It's true.
No, I know we get a lot of likes on the shorts and stuff, And it does feed into some people giving our videos and long form content a chance, which I appreciate.
Yeah,
all
really.
the comments we get, we appreciate. And I just enjoy that we can kind of put together. I responded to one comment or when I left the community post on our YouTube page, kind of explaining how we were going to be a little, absent from time. I said that, I always wanted like a place where everybody could come together and just be nerdy and talk about comic books, no matter how much or how little you knew.
Yeah.
Like that's the thing here is I know some, I don't know
a lot. You know a lot. You know a hell of a lot more than I do. I just know about the stuff that I was immersed in at my time,
I get that. But there are people who watch and will make comments on stuff of like, oh, well, what about this? What about this? So there's people out there who know more than I do.
Oh,
I welcome that. Like I'm trying to learn. And it's just, I want this to be, a place where everybody can just have fun. I think we have fun. And I like that.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. No, and I do want to echo what you said as far as comments go. You got good, bad, mediocre. I don't care. I just love to hear from you guys.
Exactly.
Any comments are appreciated. Yeah.
We're at 9,600 followers on YouTube.
That's
we're
fantastic.
Close to 10K.
That's
if we hit 10K, we're gonna have to do something. We'll figure out. Maybe we'll like do a Mystery Science Theater 3000 thing and watch one of the really, really bad like superhero movies, like the 1990 Fantastic Four movie that was made just so Fox won't lose the rights to it. Shit like that.
A rough one. Yeah.
But as always, we thank you guys for listening. Email us brosfoesandheroes@gmail.com if you want to get in touch with us, or you can just leave a comment under anything we have. Find us podcast wise anywhere you find your podcasts, or you can watch our beautiful mugs on YouTube. Thank you guys so much for taking the time out to listen as always, but also make sure to check out the great family of podcasts on the Rogue Media Network.
RogueMediaNetwork.com.
And as always,
stay
safe. It's nice. And as always, stay safe, everybody.
Got a con!
Pros and heroes. Gonna tell you about pros and heroes. Gonna tell you about.
This has been a Rogue Media Network production. Are you a podcaster? Let's talk podcast hosting. Are you tired of your current podcast host? Need real support in a community that gets it? At Rogue Media Network, we offer top-tier podcast hosting services to help you thrive. From hosting and distribution to dedicated support, we've got you covered. Starting as low as $25 a month. Join our community of passionate podcasters today. Contact us at hello@roguemedianetwork.com.